hard to put a name to that feeling. And it is a sensation, multi sensorial thing that happens, especially for me. Like I try to explain this to my husband. When I hear a song that it makes the hair on my arm stand up, but at the same time, there's like this chemical reaction happening in my heart. And I'm feeling things in different levels within my body. And I don't know if that happens to everybody or if that's kind of like a sixth sense that certain people have.
Yeah. So it is at the end of the day, it's an art form. You know how they say art is in the eyes of the beholder? Well, music is in the ears of the beholder, but the ear is the passage, the portal that then can resonate. And, you know, if you even analyze like little tiny hairs within our skull, essentially, that are creating, the different input that then creates and makes sense of the communication. Even my voice coming from my throat chakra that goes into your ears, then people are like, oh, you're speaking the same language. Están escuchando, sí o no? So it depends on the language you switch into. And the music, for me, the biggest breakthrough moment I had is when I recognized that the frequencies and the sounds, just like on the 88 keys of a piano, it goes all the way up. We have these energy centers in our body. So besides the piano that goes horizontally, we have a vertical, right? We're basically walking tubes, right? We're these human organisms. So we have these feet, we have our arms, we have our head. And in India, they talk about the chakras. And so we have these energy centers from our root chakra all the way up to our crown chakra. And sometimes you can hear music and think of certain styles of music where you're just like, oh, that just hit me so nicely in my heart.
Yeah.
I just feel it. And then other music, you want to like headbang because it's more like, it's like up in your head and you do this with your head. You bobbin. It's like a chicken's bobbin or a turkey. And then the root chakra can get you to be like, and you feel really grounded because it's a low voice, or maybe there's not as much rhythm to it, or maybe just like the drum came from Africa. There is a rhythm that feels like, ooh, I feel like I'm connected to the earth now. So my sound design is truly an ability to connect all those frequencies and sounds. So then it's a soundtrack to people's lives. And that's probably the number one piece of feedback I get from people is, whoa, like I can listen to your music while I'm practicing yoga, while I'm meditating, while I'm driving, while I'm at the beach. So while I'm studying, whatever it is that people are doing. So that's what I love is I've created these sounds that can enter people's lives in a way. You know, it's nice to reflect and pause. A lot of times we're just going in life. So I feel like music it's an art form, but I truly feel it's a technology and it's a tool that can shift our emotional selves, because a lot of us forget that emotions are temporary. Because if you're pissed off, angry, resentful, upset, you think that's your life and that's all it's ever going to be. You forget that you could maybe listen to a song, dance it out and be like, oh, okay, I feel so much better now.
Exactly. Oh my God. You just described my life, basically. Yeah. At least little pieces of it. Yeah. I can relate to just needing a shift in energy, putting a song on, dancing it out, and you're just a completely different human being after that.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing
Like
how that
it's like taking
happens.
a shower.
Yes. Water is so powerful
Mm-hmm.
too.
Completely.
And I love how I was looking at your albums and you have like a whole series just like a soundtrack for yoga. And then you have like another album that's, for the 5 chakras, which is really cool. It seems very
Mm-hmm.
intentional,
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, I'm sure all music is intentional. If you ask the artist, it's intentional, but it's very well structured for a purpose.
Yes. Yeah. So I have a trilogy of albums, and my first album is a 60-minute experience for like a standard yoga class, which people call like a vinyasa flow. And then my sophomore album is the 7 songs for 7 chakras. And then my third album is the 5 koshas. And so there's 5 energy
5 questions.
parts of who we are. So we have the physical body, right? This piece of meat that we're walking around in, this suit. And then we have our energy body. And then we also have the emotional body. And then we have the wisdom body. And then the last part of who we are is our bliss. So I've designed
Mm.
music based on these ancient traditions from India that support our modern day insanity in the West. So why not go to this deep seated 5,000 plus year old um, philosophy of how energy works with the chakras, with the koshas, with an asana flow, which is, asana basically means a seated way of being in your body, or basically it's like making shapes with your body. So when you're in a particular warrior posture, you're making the pose or the posture of a warrior spirit. So you're going to embody that. And so my music was really a template to also educate people about everything I just talked about. Because if I were a professor in a classroom, I'd be like, let me tell you about the chakras and the koshas and asana and yoga. Maybe people aren't interested as much. But if I say, hey, we're going to rock out and play some really cool music, or we're going to go internally and be intentional and maybe practice yoga or meditate, then the music is an essential ingredient to experiencing that. And I know plenty of people that have been inspired to practice yoga because they've listened to my music and they know it has a rooted connection to yoga. Even though I'm from the cornfields of Iowa, I have this really amazing human journey so far of just being able to take in all this information and then all those scales when I had piano lessons as a kid, all the drums I played, and then I got into electronic music production. But again, it's an educational piece. My background is in education, but it's also like if I was in a yoga class when I first started and there was a song playing that didn't really work for the moment, because all of us know, like sometimes you hear a song, you're like, sorry, wrong song, that doesn't work. That's why you like skip through songs or, you know, hey Siri, or, hey Google, play this song or this song, because you want it to be matching the moment. As you were saying earlier, like if you're
Yeah.
going to dance it out, Crystal, you probably want some like Afro beats or some house music. So then it
Hmm.
allows for that um, movement to flow and release whatever it is that we're holding on. So again, like music for me is, that's why I say it's nameless energy. And then my second album was called Infinite Energy. And then the third one is called Radiant Energy, because I feel like there's this opportunity for us to be in this radiance, to shine, to really be at our highest potential. So that's how
Yes.
I've been focused on my music career, with intention, as you mentioned.
Yeah. I love that. And what I love most about the educational aspect of it is, like you said, sometimes people are just not interested in things, or they don't know what they don't know. And so um it made me think of, I interviewed Cara Hunt, and she was telling me how she got separated from her indigenous culture, from her tribe, just because of things that happened in the US. Um Things I don't need to go into depth about because I really know nothing about that. So I'm not even going to touch on it. But basically, she was reconnecting with her lineage.
Mm.
And as she started engaging in certain activities, her blood memory started coming back. And she felt really emotional by engaging in these activities. And it made me think of that because music is so powerful. It's so ancient. It's so rooted in who we are as beings, that you may not know anything about koshas or chakras or yoga, but just listening to a frequency and your body remembering and knowing what that means and activating what it knows to activate, that our mind might not be ready to fully digest,
Mm.
that's really an amazing way to share.
Mm. That reminds me, once I had a jaw injury, and I had a holistic practitioner doctor that also was deeply seated in indigenous practices and like the tribal drums. Had me go to the ocean, listen to these indigenous beautiful sounds, that, and then just like be there and allow for those frequencies to connect. And I remember my jaw just loosened and I just felt a deeper connection with the earth, with the music, with these ancient primordial sounds. And it was really powerful because think of it. Most of us are like driving our car. We're tense. We're on our computers, like, we're tense. We're like doom scrolling, like, what's going on in the world? And we're like this. But all of a sudden, when I was able to be in nature and have, as you were sharing, like these native instruments and sounds that are part of it's our birthright to be tapped into that. And, back in the day, there was no like musicians that would go on a stage and perform. You just gather around a fire, one of those key elements of life, like water. We mentioned the power of water, fire, and you're just in community and you're connected.
Yeah.
And it's really powerful. So that's beautiful that she got the like have that unlock and have that swell of emotions, because it's like she gets to remember who she is. And that's what I love about music. It can remind us of pieces of ourselves, that whole like multisensory, multidimensional, those layers we were discussing earlier. It's like, oh, now I get it. I remember that. Like, yes.
Yeah. And so how did you get into this? Like, how did your musical journey begin?
Grateful to acknowledge my mother, because I like to reframe it to say I chose my mother before I came into this life. And I'm responsible because she is classically trained piano player and she's a vocal coach and she's been in musical theater.
Wow.
And I used to watch musicals and movies and be a part of all of that. But I grew up in a household that had an upright piano. Of course, certain people grow up in a household that doesn't have any musical instruments. And so learning about music would be either sought out elsewhere or in the schools or something of that sort. So I got from day one, and I'll tell you a fun fact too, like they've done studies and they say like around 18 weeks in the womb, we as babies start to have a sense of hearing, right? Like they've done like music studies where one of my favorite musicians of all time, Eddie Van Halen, he used to play guitar on Valerie Bertinelli. She's the mom of their son, Wolfie. And he would play guitar and the baby would kick. Like, more of that, please. Because we have a sense of course, we're swimming in water in the womb, but the ripple effects and the sound waves and the musical waves all connect. So what I share with people is, was there music being played in your house when your mother was, pregnant with you? And I know people that have said, oh yeah, there was so much music in the house. And a lot of times those musicians are like, okay, it's like we were already ahead of the game because we have absorbed so much of those frequencies and sound waves. So then me being brought home to a home that has piano music being played, my mom doing la 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 la, doing the scales, having voice students come in and out of the house. That like really allowed for me to just have a, immersive experience with music. And then my brother, he also plays piano. My brother actually started to play trumpet. He actually played for the Army band. So he went into the military and used to perform for presidents, and he would go across overseas. And then my own journey was getting into playing the drums. I was a kid in high school that would like play at a school dance. I'd be in like a rock band. I'd play the drums or the keyboards. But then I got into like multi-track recording, where I had these aha moments of like, you can listen to music on the radio or back in the day on cassette tapes or CDs or albums. But when you could actually play the notes and create music, that's when it became, I would say, like a lifestyle. Because it's one thing to listen to other people's music, but it's another thing, and then to replicate it note by note. But it's better. That's my analogy is like, remember you do like the paint by numbers. It show you exactly what to paint, or you trace something. It's different tracing than it is, I'm just going to freehand create some art in the world visually. And the same thing with music. And even my piano teacher told my mom taught me piano, but she also knew it's better to have a different piano teacher. Cause I always tried to weasel out of it. I'd be like, Mom, all my friends are playing outside. Do I really have to do the scales? So a big shout out to Mrs. Muir and Dr. Sessler, who taught me piano. And, I would do these piano recitals, but I would be playing Beethoven and Bach. but I'd be doing it like my own style. So I was already like pushing the edges. And then at that point, at 10 years old is when I started to make my own compositions. And just like, you're just experimenting. And so that was when it all started. And then, of course, from there, just playing in jazz bands, marching bands. I got to go to Japan when I was 15 to perform with the marching band. And just to see that music is a
Wow.
worldwide phenomenon it's that
Mm-hmm.
international language. Like music is everywhere, every continent for as long as we've traced human history. So that's the unifying piece. And I live in Costa Rica, and our neighbors play, salsa, merengue, Latin American music. And I really love that. When I go work out and do like, at the gym, they're playing, it's like this fun music.
Oh,
It gets you pumped up. And there's some, so that's to me, it's like this thread of humanity is music, but it's really cool for me. The reason why my second album is called Infinite Energy is I have one of those like aha moments where I was like, oh my gosh, music is infinite, because there's so many instruments globally with electronic music, with what you can do with the human voice. It just blew my mind. And then from there, I just started to declare like, well, if there's all these options, what kind of music do I want to create? And at the time I started to get into my yoga practice, and being in some classes where the music didn't really fit the moment, I was like, hey, I want to do this even better. So that's really how I got into it. I was like, oh, I'm going to start creating music that is going to encourage people and inspire people.
that's awesome. What a great story.
Yeah,
And what a amazing musical background. Sounds like you were fully
I
supported in
was.
this
I'm so
journey.
grateful.
Yeah. So how does this relate to retreats? How does your music relate?
Well, as we were sharing, just at the fundamental word of what retreat even is defined as is you have your default world, right? And then you want to retreat, you want to go into some other place or space. Music is that alone. So music has always been an essential ingredient to our wellness and retreat center. It's called Embody Costa Rica. We're in the Central Valley. And for us, when people come on site, they always are so inspired by, I walk around, I play a rain stick, I play harmonium, I have all these instruments that are a part of the experience. And so before people walk into our sacred space, it's a huge, like 2,000 square foot yoga shala. There'll be like sage and just, ceremony and intention. And there'll be music playing in the backdrop. And it's really powerful because it really
Mm.
shifts people's energy, especially people that have been to a retreat. Guess what? The to-do list, the packing list, you get on the flight, you go through immigration, you're grabbing your luggage, you're just like boom, 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 boom. It's like really heavy and just really bland energy where like you want to soften. So for me, music gets people to take that inward journey. And most people that are out there that are part of retreats or facilitators or have venues like Himalaya and I have, music is that ability to welcome and invite people into the journey within, to go in their heart, to get out of their head and go into the heart. And music can quickly shift that for people. And so it's an essential part of when we do sound healing. Even one of the last nights of our retreats, I offer an ecstatic dance, which is essentially, besides having a DJ on the mic that's like, DJ, hey everyone, let's do it. Ecstatic dance is there's no words, no people talking. Ecstatic dance is a whole new movement. It's been happening for a while now, but more people are hearing about it, especially at retreats, where you just allow the music to have a flow state within you, and you can, choose to dance with other people with consent and with intention. But what I love is music is really a part of, it's almost like it builds the energy and the excitement, and it can get into like a celebration energy where you're like, yeah, like
Hmm.
I'm learning about myself. I'm discovering I'm in this beautiful country, or I'm in this new location that I'm not, in my office or my cubicle, or in this, life can be kind of bland and dull at times because you're just like routine, routine, routine. So I love how music at a retreat experience can really awaken people into fresh possibilities.
Hmm. That's really interesting. I was one of the questions I was wondering is how does this fit in a retreat? I mean, I haven't, the retreats that I've been on and hosted have been very manual, I guess I would say, like with no electronics, no digital.
Mm.
And so I love that. I mean, if I'm understanding it correctly, you have your music in the background, kind of like an ambiance, and then you take physical instruments and play on top of it to like layer it. Is that
Exactly.
like one
Yeah.
aspect?
So, for example, even if we're going to circle up and we're about to have our opening ceremony, because most retreats have an opening and a closing experience. So when people are coming into the space, even if it's like ambient, relaxing music, I will play some additional instruments. I do play live piano. And there's just something about
Okay.
you're walking into a mini concert. You walk in from the airplane and you're just like, wow, live music. And it just,
Yeah.
again, it invites people to welcome in a shift within themselves. It also makes people feel
Hmm.
special, right, Crystal? Like if you go somewhere and there's like live professional award-winning musicians playing and like loving on you energetically to be like, hey, we want you to have the best, most life enhancing moment, this retreat experience. And people feel it also distinguishes the experience because now when you have that, you can really, and also let's say like a lot of retreats could typically want people to journal. So you could, of course, journal
Hmm.
with the birds and journal in silence on a hammock and all that. But there is something if you have music that's intentional and it's in a particular sound vibration, it can really get people to have these beautiful memories and envision what they're wanting to create for their lives. And also, a lot of times I
Yeah.
feel people go to retreats for healing, and there's nothing like, I think everyone out there listening probably knows that a song can bring you to tears, just one song. And the frequencies and the energy of the songs, you're like, you can have a major release. Let's say you miss a loved one or someone passed away and you're grieving and you're journaling about it in a retreat space. It's like the music can just allow for that release to happen. Where maybe
Hmm.
if it wasn't the music there, it might take a longer amount of time. By the time it's like, oh, closing ceremony, time to go. And you're like, but I didn't get out of the retreat what I wanted. So to me, it just elevates and enhances the overall journey that people are on. And again, at our retreats that are at Embody, and Embody stands for empowerment, movement, breakthroughs, opportunities, dharma, and yoga. So the M is movement. So yes, you could dance. Like I could get up and just dance right now with no music, but it's way more enjoyable, and it's actually going to get me in a flow state to move my body and to release whatever emotions I'm processing if there's an opportunity to play music. So that's how, to me personally, I've recognized that it can really get even a workshop, like someone's teaching a workshop, they're like, okay, just close your eyes and just think about, someone in your life that you really want to send love to right now. But if there's this really powerful song that comes in, it can really support. Now, there's a time for music. There's a time for no music. I'm not saying like you can't have a retreat without or with or without music. It's someone's choice. I mean, we've gone as far as having a professional recording studio because if someone wants to record guided meditations and then use one of my ambient songs, they could record that on site. So that's how it's all tied in.
Wow. Yeah. That's something I really resonate with. Recently, actually, I was watching a series and I'm totally fine, just chilling, and a song comes on. Random song. Anyway, it's not about the song. The point is that just hearing it, I lost it uncontrollably because it reminded me of my grandfather that passed a few years ago. And and I was like, wow, where is this coming from? Like I didn't even know that this was in here. And it just, and my husband's like, are you okay? I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. I just got it. And all from the
Yeah.
song. Um, and I talked about this with Manuela, who plays like beautiful harp in Playa del Carmen.
Mm,
And she was saying, I just, sometimes you see people really going through it.
yes.
And then I'll come over and just start playing. Like the music helps them, like you said, to just get it out because it's right there on the precipice. And we like to just hold, like we like to just, everything's fine. Everything's fine. I'm feeling it, but it's
Yeah.
fine. And then you just hear that chord or you just hear that melody that just, and then it releases. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what a beautiful gift to be able to organize your space and your offering in that way with music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love to be able to, even we have these little fun like bells and chimes that during like a shavasana or just people are relaxing. I walk around the chimes of the bells and I just sometimes see people's just they start to smile and they
Yeah.
receive it. Or sometimes what we all forget to do is take deep breaths. Sometimes I'll walk around the rain stick. People just be like, oh, like, oh, thank you. Like that was cleansing. That felt good. And there is this connectivity to remembering these instruments. Like when you hear certain sounds, like you just mentioned the sound that reminded you of your grandfather. And it's really, it's a great opportunity. And what we've learned too is a lot of people that come to our retreat center, even if they haven't pursued any creative adventures, at their hearts, they really are choosing and wanting to do something creative in their life, whatever that means for them. So that's one of the pieces too, is like if there are retreat facilitators that are integrating some kind of creative aspect of learning about who we are and connecting as a community, then usually people are like, oh, I remember I used to write poetry, or I remember I used to draw just for fun. Right. I know so many people come to me and like, I used to play flute and then I gave it up, or I used to play this instrument and then I stopped. And so that's what I feel. And it's not always about an instrument or like an actual art form. It to me, like it can spur creativity. Like, okay, you're having this struggle in your life, you're super challenged. How do you creatively find a solution to become unstoppable, to go beyond that? So if you see someone like me that's in my bliss, I'm in my dharma, and this is what I'm designed to do, it can empower people. As I like to say, people learn three ways: example, example, example. So if you are embodying that and you are the example of creativity as a possibility, then it can bring about that inspiration and a whole like healing journey for people to go on.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And what about ecstatic dance? And I'm just going to put out like an objection, maybe that maybe I had once upon a time. I no longer have, but I've never been to a retreat that had a DJ. Although I love DJs. I'm from Miami, so I know a good
Of
party.
course.
And so to me, it's I've been to ecstatic dance events,
Mm-hmm.
but how does that work at a retreat?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how does that work at a retreat?
Yeah, to me, uh, just in general, it's an opportunity for people. So if you go to a traditional club like you have in Miami, then there's alcohol, there's drugs, there's people yelling over top of each other. You know, there's everyone's trying to look a certain way and pretend and they have a mask on. Hey, I'm the cooler. They're trying to one up everyone. It's all like pretty much, ego based, right? It's like get old fashioned, just
Mm.
get drunk, get party, hook up culture, right? So that's the opposite. If you want to play the game of contrast, I can contrast with that. And then ecstatic dance is actually the music that is being played is made with the intention of inspiration. And I play music that's called like medicine music, where it's there to support people, and it has certain instruments from like South America. And it has, here in Central America and Costa Rica, it's recorded with local artists. So the intention is like, let's get deeper connected to the earth. Like we even do a sweat lodge at Temescal, which is a tradition that comes from Mexico. So for us, when there's music that's being shared and there's no need for anyone to have conversation, people are completely sober. I mean, they might be high on life and the experience. And people are at that point, when we do an ecstatic dance, they've already been able to connect in community. We actually do this activity called listening lunches, where at lunchtime, we all listen to each other. We all have an opportunity to share, hey, what's going on in each of our worlds? So we create this beautiful sense of friendship, and you just see each other. You witness each other in ways that maybe, this day and age, most people don't even know who their neighbors are. So how can you find like a soul family or people that you can relate to? So the ecstatic dance is an opportunity for, once people have achieved a level of connection, and anyone that's been on a retreat that they've had a experience like this, you know what I'm talking about, where all of a sudden they became a stranger and now you feel like they're like a soul sister, a soul brother. You're like, oh my gosh, and there's so much connection. So the music can bring in a sense of celebration, and it can even deepen the connectivity and the intimacy. We love this activity where you basically just come up to them and you say like, I see you. I see you. And it's like being seen. How many people are not feeling seen in the world, or feeling like they have to scream over each other? I mean, think of this toxic political situation where everyone feels like they're righteous and everyone else is wrong. So I feel like when you're on the dance floor and you're there to celebrate and give like a sacred space of honoring yourself. And what happened for me is like when I went to my first school dance when I was in high school, I was dating a sophomore. I was a freshman, and I'll never forget this moment. It was like the music that was back in, the early 90s. It was like REM and It's the End of the World as We Know It. And I remember I was like feeling the music. It was cool. But all of a sudden, the girlfriend I had at the time, she goes on the dance floor. She's like, hey, let's dance. I remember me all of a sudden I became like an Iowa farm boy. And I was like, oh, I can't dance like this. I'm going to look weird, or I'm just going to be cool. I'm going to be tough. And I'm going to like just stand here.
Do a little side to side.
Yeah, maybe side to side. Remember the school dances, you put the hands on the hips only. Yeah, like this. Just like, oh, but like very tight, very, very reserved, and very like, oh, I'm cool. I can't do that. Or I'm afraid of looking bad. So I'm just going to try to look as cool as possible. So I remember that moment, and I recognized like, what if I would have just been this free ranged, just open and self-expressed human being at the time? But that's me as a teenager, right? So as an adult, some of us have these past traumas and drama around maybe not feeling accepted or being bullied or just not feeling like you're a part of anything in a community. So when you are in a retreat space and you start to feel connected to yourself and others and the land and your future and all the possibilities, I feel like the music that's intentionally played where you're not speaking, you're just moving, and there's no judgment. It's just a space of, you're not being rated. It's not like one of those Dancing with the Stars and you get judged, or you have Simon Cowell from American Idol that says you're a piece of crap or something. Like, it's truly like whatever feeling. If you want to get on the floor and just do this, if you want to spin around and do breakdancing, like whatever movement, if you want to do the Running Man, like it's an open place for everyone to be seen. And, retreats are mainly for adults. So at this point, it's almost like, how do we get into a place of self-acceptance and knowing that you're accepted to move and flow however you want? So that's the difference of like, maybe, as I said, the old stories of going out to a club or dancing and being, not fully in your body, because you're just there because you just want to, have a different agenda. But the agenda, or the intention rather, at our retreat center is for people to come as they are and to feel welcome, to be seen and to be heard, and to just allow for whatever to show up. And it's perfect.
Yeah. I'm really glad that we're talking about this, because I've had conversations where a lot of people disagree with, or they just maybe don't understand merging technology with nature. And I think it can be very beneficial. And I've talked about this before with just meeting people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
If you're used to going out into that kind of environment,
Yeah.
it's like we're going to create a similar ish environment that has a completely different spin on it. So you can experience it in a more mindful and healthier way. So you can still enjoy the things that you enjoy, but you can enjoy them in a way that's going to benefit you and benefit the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a lot, and especially, like in Tulum, there's a lot of different things going on in Tulum, but like DJ culture is just like not welcomed because of there's a lot of negative things
Yeah.
going on over
Well,
there, but
yeah.
it's good to see this positive aspect that maybe most people don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And just I'm not a disc jockey. I'm a music producer and classically trained artist. So like for me, it's a different approach. Like if you talk about like a club classic DJ, it's a whole different intention. Like I'm bringing instruments, like the harmonium I play comes from India. So there's a reverence to these instruments and there's an intention of why the instruments are playing. I mean, technically, you could call it a technology, like as I said earlier, like music is a tool, but if it's used in a way where you're actually doing it to like bring about a positive shift in people, and if again you're not doing anything but just focusing on like where's the resistance, like if people are like, well, what's the resistance of having beautiful music that can really inspire people and to move your body in a way that is in a sober experience and it's done in a way where people can just move freely. Yeah, and Tulum, I mean, that has a whole can of worms about. I went to Tulum in
It does.
1993, and
Wow.
yes, I went there more like National Geographic. I got to climb Chichen Itza, the main pyramid. Yeah, and I got to see an amazing culture. I got to learn some Mayan language, and yeah, I'm sure you could do a whole podcast of um, Tulum, but there's also a lot of um, I would say there's not many people. Now, I've been to Burning Man. I've played at festivals. I go to yoga festivals. Personally, maybe unless because of the context of retreat builder, you're speaking to people that do retreats. Are you speaking to people that have done like Vipassanas, where like silent retreats where you're in nature and like you can't have your phone and you can't have any music whatsoever? Is that like a majority of your guests?
No, actually, Retreat Builder is so there's I've never there's all kinds of
Yeah.
retreats. I mean, yes, there's that, but there's all kinds of retreats. So I guess it's just this opening our minds, not being so rigid as like what is a retreat, but what are all the different ways in which we can heal, in which we can meet each other where we are, in which we can find what resonates with us so that
Mm-hmm.
the world can the goal is the same. No, we want to be better people and we want to live in a better world. We want to make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever tools, like you were saying, different people need to use in order to achieve that, why should we limit each other
Mm-hmm.
for things that don't necessarily resonate or
Yeah.
or that resonate with someone
Yeah.
else?
And also, I think everyone's seen the movie Footloose. Like, you don't have to be that angry pastor of a church that says you can't dance. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was, you know, 21st century. I think most people know like one of the most popular platforms on phones is like TikTok, which is about it's a karaoke machine. It's like inspiring people to dance. And I feel like people, one way to get out of depression or repression is to just dance, just move your body. So yeah, I agree. If there's any listeners out there that are like, oh, when I go to a retreat, I just want to go in my mind only, and I only want to maybe explore things in my heart. I don't want to like dance or move my body. I mean, everything's optional too. Like if someone feels uncomfortable, like I can't dance or I have an injury or something, we're not going to force people to dance. But I feel like if the curriculum is designed properly and you're attracting people that are truly up for transformation in the world, and as you said, the world is also about making a difference. And the main three benefits we have at our retreats is clarity, connection, and community. And clarity in people's vision of what they're wanting to design their life to be like, And then the connection is the connection to themselves and what stories they've told themselves in the past, like the movie Footloose. Well, I told a story, no one can dance. If we dance, we're going to get in trouble because something happened. And then, this is the programming. Or like, why do I have these self-defeating, self-deprecating thoughts? So it's like these stories we tell ourselves. So the self-connection is like rewriting those stories. And then the last part is community. You could be the most highly ascended human being crystal on planet Earth, but if you're not connected with community, which of course you are because you have a podcast, then what's it for? Like, great. If a tree falls in the woods and no one's there, does it make a sound? So to me, it's like, how do we come together? How do we design and create community? And I'm super grateful to say that the people that have come to embody Costa Rica, the community doesn't end here. It's a ripple effect. It's integration. And that's the biggest mistake I think retreats make, is not recognizing you get to still keep connection. Like, we have Zoom meetings and we still connect with people through our WhatsApp groups, and they follow us on socials, and we drop in and we have opportunities. And some people fly in and record guided meditations in my studio, or they'll do like one-on-one work with Himalaya, and then they'll send pictures. That's will be like, hey, here's a crew of us in San Diego. Oh, here's a crew of us in Portland. So there's people that then integrate the lessons into their lives, and then they stay in connection, and they really take the tools and the curriculum and then put it into their lives, where then they embody that, and they just don't say, oh, that was an awesome week. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's like, no, why did you spend, most retreats are a few hundred, if not a few $1,000s. So to me, it's like, if you put a bunch of money into your college education, hopefully you're going to use your degree to do something. And when you talk about technology, I got a master's in educational technology. So, I haven't really seen too much of the resistance around certain technologies, or as you're sharing, like with, people having a celebration or like a final dance or some kind of way to integrate music. But we're very music happy, friendly. And there's people that come that are massively musical, like curious, where they're like, ooh, can I play the harmonium? And I'll be like, yeah, sure, play the harmonium. Oh, can I play the little wind chime? Can I play the rain stick? They'll want to go in the studio, like, hey, I have this song that I always have that comes up, and I want to maybe record it. Great. So yeah, and I do agree, there's all types of retreats, and there's different ways of integrating all the parts and pieces of who we are.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to find any resistance from me. I am super techie, and I love music. And I was thinking, what have you thought of doing a retreat? So, and maybe you have. I'm sure you have, but I'm just going to put it out there. Blaney has a space in Mexico, and she was working with a writing coach, where basically you go to the retreat, and after 5 days you come out with your book. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, how cool would it be if you go to a retreat with DTO and then you come out with your album after 5 days?
Yeah, I love that idea. I've several fellow music producers that have talked about, it's like a creative incubator where people come together. They would, we have HD projectors, we have everything dialed in, where we can do workshops and teach, and even we do have people that come that then they'll stay in like a post immersion, and then they'll come and record like a spoken word poem, or they'll come and do a guided meditation. But I love your idea of like more of like, hey, let's create a song together. Let's create music. We even do talent shows at our retreats, because it's a fun way because we do groups. I don't know if you've been to retreats where there's group work, but that's like a big essential ingredient to what we do. Because again, it goes back to the third thing I mentioned, communities, right? Clarity, connection, community. So if you don't have, and if you're in a big retreat, there's 24 or 30 people, you're never going to have that sense of intimacy like you could if there's like a pod, we call them, like a group of 5 people that are connected. Because then when you're sharing about what's going on in your life or what you're desiring, you can actually speak for 5 minutes besides 30 seconds. Because if you have a big circle, so that's what we've done as well. But I love your idea. We have had a musician that came, actually stayed right behind me in this room, and she wrote like a 5-song EP. She came down from Canada, and her name's Ada Nays. Big shout out to her. I ended up doing like a remix of one of her songs, but she came to our space here, and she was so inspired, and she's like, Oh my gosh, the songs. She just woke up and she said like the guitar almost played itself. She just like was channeling all this energy and music. She was so inspired.
Oh my God. Okay, well if you make that happen, let me know so
Yes,
I can go sign
absolutely.
up. All right. So let me ask you this last bit of questions. This is more like advice
Mhm.
for retreat leaders. So how can what should they focus on when if they want to include more of this multi-sensory musical experience in their retreats?
I would always get clear on what's the vision of why you're doing the retreat in the first place. So, for example, when I was a teacher in a public school and private school setting, I knew like these are the standards. This is where I want people to achieve. Just like I was sharing, like our retreats are about clarity, connection, community. So if it's about generating community, if it's about creating a vision for people and connection, then create activities and have different experiences that, as we started out our conversation with, that are multi-sensory, that just doesn't have people in this one-dimensional space. If people wanted to be one-dimensional, they would have stayed home. They would have never given you thousands of dollars to come to your retreat. They're coming because they're trusting in you to have a breakthrough moment, to have something that goes beyond their everyday average, stagnant life. And so when you can include sound vibrations and healing instruments, and when you can include even the opportunity for other people to just play those instruments when it comes to music, or just like in Costa Rica, it's, there's 2 times the amount of bird species in Costa Rica than the entire combined continents or the countries of Canada and the US. So just thousands of bird species. So for us, it's even like activities like just have a listen, just get present to the sounds, because some people don't ever listen properly. So for me, it's if you're really desiring that people have change and a shift in who they are in the retreat, or to acquire or learn some skill sets, because I know there's lots of retreats that are, as you said, you're going to achieve this and this is what you're going to do, and you're going to write your book, or you're going to create that business plan. So I feel like if you can offer something that's going to get people out of their comfort zone, no one has ever achieved massive success in their comfort zone. So retreats are, even getting on an airplane for certain people is an uncomfortable, even like, oh, wow, I got to get a passport and go internationally. That could be uncomfortable for people, like, oh, how do I fill it out? And oh my God, I'm going to have to go. Like, it was like pulling my mom's teeth to get her to renew her passport. But it was a breakthrough moment and it was uncomfortable. But in the end, she came and she visited us in Costa Rica and she had the time of her life. So, to me, it's like inviting people into experiences. I mean, meeting people where they're at. You don't want to do something, if someone just had knee surgery, you're not going to go ziplining in the rainforest. But, you know, excursions are a great way to get people out of their comfort zone too, like taking people to a waterfall, a river. So that's what I always recommend people to do as well. Being on site is fantastic, but also for us, like we live in a charming little authentic Costa Rican mountain town in Central America. So when people can actually tap into the rhythms of, el ritmo latino, like to be a part of a different culture and a different life, then it's like, oh, things can be done differently. This thing called life could be, I don't have to be this like exact program way that I was taught to do, because that's what my grandpa and my grandmother and every other generation, and that's just what I was told to do, and that's what I'm doing. So I always feel like being connected with the local community in some aspect can really get people to have a better experience than if you just lock them into a retreat center the entire time. That's my own personal opinion.
Yeah. That's good advice.
Yeah.
That's good advice. And is there anything else that you want to share? Maybe a message that you want to put out into the world?
Absolutely. Yeah. So number one, remember to breathe.
Oh,
Yeah. Take
that was
take
nice.
breath. Remember who you are. Remember that this lifetime for us can truly be about embodying our truth. And remember that we all have a true north, and listen to your soul, listen to your heart, be still, and really just be in nature. And most of my days, I'm barefoot. I'm walking the land here at Embody, Costa Rica. I just saw a toucan bird right before we started our interview. It's just like be in awe of a just full wow and wonder and curiosity that we get to live this incredible journey. Because to go from the ordinary to the extraordinary, that's what we're here to do. We're not here to just stay in the couch. We're here to get out and really see and learn more about who we are. And at the end of the day, it's always an inside job. So the more that we get to stop and listen, maybe you're going to feel like, ooh, maybe there's people out in the world that would understand me, that would relate to me. Maybe coming to a retreat somewhere internationally or locally could allow for me to find a tribe, right? And to follow your bliss, of course, where you're like, ooh, I want to go learn something about myself. And so that's what I would always encourage people to do, is keep learning, stay curious. Naturally, we're offering something at our Wellness and Retreat Center at Embody Costa Rica that can get people to feel that sense of creativity, healing, and community, that without that, we're not meant to be alone. So yeah. Also call your mom, phone a friend. Just don't be on the ad. Just don't message everyone. Just pick up the phone and call someone.
Yes, I love
Especially around the holidays, right?
Yes. I love receiving texts and phone calls. Well, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you, Crystal.
It was so lovely.
Yes, thank you to you.
Love for this conversation.
Retreat Builder. Check it out. It's awesome.